Hello and welcome to One Centered Life, your go-to resource for holistic empowerment, life coaching, healing, and retreat. I'm Amy Joy, your host, and I'm so excited to welcome you to today's video with my dear friend, Christine O'Connor. She's a person of both really fiery passion, intensity, as well as a certain earthiness and groundedness for sure. You'll see once I flip to the interview because you can pick up on her energy right away. She has really interesting work with grief-stricken families as well as couples breathwork. So I'm super excited to introduce Christine and her work to you. So read the comments below to find the link for her information as well as a link for mine as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the other side. Make sure that you like this video and subscribe to my channel for future updates with other breathwork facilitators and life hacks from a life coach. So without any further ado, my interview with Christine O'Connor. Hi everyone, it's Amy Joy again from One Centered Life, and I'm here today with Christine O'Connor. Christine's from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she's doing some work there in Michigan locally now. Christine, would you care to tell us a little bit more about your breathwork business and the things you've got going on?
Hi, Amy. Hi, guys. I'm happy to be here. So I'm located in Ann Arbor, which is not too far from Detroit either. So I've been having some groups here in Ann Arbor, live groups, and in the Detroit area. And I have a studio right downtown Ann Arbor in the Michigan Theater Building, which is right near U of M's campus. And here I'm actually in here right now. This is my little tiny studio. Here I do privates and couples sessions. And I also offer small groups occasionally, really small, intimate groups here. Pretty soon I actually have virtual offerings coming up. So I'll start doing virtual groups as well. And obviously, I do virtual one-on-ones and couples too. So there's a lot going on here, here in Michigan. I'm really happy to be doing this work in this area where there's not too many of us offering this and bringing it.
Yeah, what you said about couples is very interesting too, because of the ladies I've spoken to, none of them have mentioned couples work. Can you tell us a little bit about like that experience? What's that like?
Yeah, so the energy between couples is obviously a really special energy, and being able to hold space for them to maybe shed some of their old habits or some of the problems with their communication that's happening, and just holding space while they open up to each other. I don't know. I'm in a partnership. If you're in a partnership, you know a lot of things happen over and over again. Like you get into habits of communication, you get into habits of reaction, and this couple work can sometimes create a safe space for people to open up to each other in a slightly different way, to shed some of that those negative patterns, and it can be really transformational.
That sounds amazing. So how did you find, it really does. How did you find out about breathwork? How did you get started on this path?
So it's pretty random actually. I was like, I'm certain I'm not the only person who's going to give you this answer, but it was through Instagram, actually. I somehow found, and I don't even remember the process, but I found someone on Instagram who offered groups in New York City. And at the time I was in New York pretty regularly, and so happened to be there during an offering of one of these groups. So I went, I think with a similar expectation that people come to my groups with, or groups in general, meditation, right? Grounding. And I went and I had a really profound clearing experience, an epiphany, and I, was breathing for maybe 20 minutes. And when I was done, I was pretty hooked. One time, the amount of clearing and healing that happened in that one session made me realize that this was something for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting for me too. The first time I was hooked. The woman who led my session, her name is Jenny Muir, and she gave us the expectation that, oh, you'll find out what your energetic signature is, like before we breathed. And I was like, what does that mean even? I have no idea. But when I sat up, I knew exactly what it meant. Like everything
Amazing.
that I was carrying around, like all the stuff, all the fear, all of my filters, my reservedness, my, conservative, all gone. It's just my spirit was just shining
There
clear
you
as
are.
day. Yeah.
There you are. And it's
Yeah,
magic. There's
exactly. It was
nothing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, and then so once you went to the one session, then you decided that was something you had to do also, right? For healing?
Yeah. Yeah. So I immediately wanted, excuse me, I looked forward to my area, and there's some practitioners in this area who are doing other forms of breath work. There's a little bit of access to things that may be kind of similar, but there wasn't this form of non-patented breath work that we do. And so I really felt like I needed to bring it here. It just felt, I have a community of people here that I love who are doing spiritual work, and I felt like they needed to have it. And at the time, though, I was maybe 5 or 6 months pregnant with my second baby, who was due that January. And I knew I couldn't really do training and start up doing this at the time. So I put it on the back burner, did my own work. And then this spring, my baby was 1. So I headed to training so that I could start bringing this here.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So Christine, how long have you been doing the breathwork meditations for yourself?
So I started my first group was in September of 2016. So it's been almost 2 years now is when I first did it. And I've been doing it pretty regularly ever since.
Mm-hmm. Curious, you said that your community there in Michigan needed to have this experience, right? What was it like? Maybe there were some personal shifts or experiences that you had that you knew that others also needed to feel. Were there any noticeable shifts that breathwork was responsible for in your own life?
Yeah. So, oh my God, there's so many. So one thing is I've been in recovery from substances since I was in my 20s. And so I've been doing many, many years of spiritual work, right? And I'm surrounded by a lot of people who are doing spiritual work. And I found myself kind of at a spiritual plateau, though. And doing this one session, I had a loss pretty recently. I was pregnant. I was having kind of depression during my pregnancy. I thought I was just having some hormonal stuff. And then during the session, I had this epiphany of unresolved grief over a loss through a foster situation. And I realized it was really coloring my experience of this pregnancy, that I was kind of brushing off on chemicals, right? Which is, legit too, but not necessarily all that was going on with me. So I had this quick epiphany. I had this clearing from it. And I realized that the spiritual connection and the healing work that I got from that was necessary for me to continue. And I know so many people who are doing spiritual work in a certain way, and who maybe are doing therapy, who are doing different things to have do self-reflection, do self-work. And sometimes there's just something missing, right? And I know I have a lot of friends who practice meditation, but it's often hard to do a seated practice regularly unless you're really, and not that I definitely still do a seated practice and try a seated practice. I'm not brushing that off as something less valuable, but it can be more challenging to keep up with sometimes, to be accountable to yourself. And in the recovery community, there's this kind of saying that's, how free do you want to be? And, I really had this realization, I need to up my spiritual game, and I want more freedom, and I want more joy and wholeness in my life. And this is something that can get me to that place of, like you were talking about, your shining light of spirit. Connect more with my divine inside and the universe, the external universe, that, and help other people to do that as well.
Yeah, that's definitely, if that's missing, it's definitely needed. So I'm so happy that, you know, you stepped up to the plate. You know, no matter where we are, some of the things I was talking about with some of the other ladies as well is, you know, we get a different experience through each healer that we interact with. And
Sure.
so with your background and flavoring of your life experience, it really tailors a bit of like what you want to give, and the experience that you do end up giving.
I agree. And I identify as like pretty grounded. Like I'm a Midwest mom, right? So the energy that I bring and the way that I hold space is really different from some people who've I've experienced being in groups with. But it's and some of my clearing and healing that needs to happen while I do this process is surrounding like trying to become a parent, being a parent. I have a father with Alzheimer's, so dealing with kind of helplessness around loved ones' illnesses, the helplessness around not being able to really do anything for people sometimes, right? As well as I have a large community here of artists and creative friends, and so being able to kind of have people who might not go to a yoga studio or something experience what it can mean to do this work as a creative person, how it can really clear out some blocks and spark that creative process is also kind of a wonderful thing that I feel like I can do here in my area.
Yeah, it's so important. You and I were speaking before this about the accessibility, and I just have to echo that. So important to just have this work available to all people, all walks of life. And
Yeah,
that's
I
beautiful.
yeah. I hope that it can be, I hope to cast a wide net so that a lot of people feel like it's an experience that they're willing to try, rather than feeling like they need to live a certain lifestyle or be into a certain like list of things to experience it, because it is such powerful work and I think it's for everybody.
It's for everybody. So what is your current routine with breathwork look like? How often do you do it? How often do you recommend one should do it?
So I think it's really personal. I don't make a ton of recommendations. I direct people to resources and I say, you know, here's some resources for you. Here I am for you if you need it. It's a process that I personally still, after years of regular practice, and I see other people too, feel like sometimes there's a little more resistance to doing it right before you do it. Because sometimes you know it's going to be, it can be a really clearing experience, and sometimes you just don't want to do that, right? Sometimes sometimes I'd rather not. It sounds ridiculous when I say it, but sometimes I'd rather not clear out the gunk inside of me and fill up with the power of the universe. Sometimes I'd rather like eat some cake. And so I try to do a regular practice. I have 2 really small kids, so my routine, and my husband is a nurse, he works nights. My routine is a little bit confusing some days, but I try to do a 7-minute at least breathwork session in the morning or the evening, and then I do in the morning or the evening a different type of meditation. So I try to do kind of these little clearings, which are a little less, feel a little less challenging than for me to lay down and breathe for half an hour every day. I do, every time I facilitate breathing, I breathe beforehand. So I do my own, I make sure to schedule into my work day when I'm working with clients or when I'm having a group, I make sure to schedule in time to do at least 20 minutes of breathing beforehand. And then, you know, I try to do a longer session at least a couple times a week for myself. So it does fluctuate, but the value is undeniable. So I do it as often as I can.
I love the ritual that you have of doing the breath right before working with a client. for me, that is really powerful too. And it helps me to reconnect with the experience, what I'm going to facilitate or what I want to give to the client. Maybe I may even get something right there in that breathing that is, meant just for them.
I agree. And clearing out whatever my day looks like, clearing out whatever garbage I'm carrying, so I don't have to bring it to the session.
Mm.
And also priming, right? Priming for whatever they need.
Yes, definitely a must. So do you have any, what would just to get an idea of like your personality, what would be the perfect breathwork session? Like maybe on a cliff by the ocean, or do you
like
have
for
a fantasy
practice or like for a group?
for yourself?
Okay.
Just what would be like the ultimate fantasy breathwork? Would like, I don't know, some celebrity be leading your holding space for you? Or would it be in a Buddhist
I like
temple?
this question. So in general, so I'm in Michigan. We are surrounded by Great Lakes. I grew up on Lake Huron. I'm really connected to water and to the wind that comes with being near the water. So in general, I always, and I do this as often as I can, try to do breath work on a pier surrounded by water. And the best nights are full moon with an onshore wind. So there's a lot of wind, there's a lot of waves. It's really magic. But so that's kind of my general ideal. But if I'm really going to go one step further, I was once in a cloud forest, and cloud forests are, I mean, I'm no expert in any way to describe this, but from what I gather, like at a certain elevation where there's just, you're hanging out in clouds all day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on a platform in this cloud forest, and I was just being buffeted by clouds and wind, and it was just magic and electric. And I would love to do breath work on that platform. Wow. Or something somewhere similar in a cloud forest. That's a kind of, I guess, my ideal dream is breath work in a cloud forest in the middle of, again, because wind and water are the elements that really bring me, and of course I'm surrounded by the other elements too, but it really, a lot of windy wetness connects me to my element and to nature like nothing else does.
That sounds amazing. I can imagine. Yes, I want to come. Let's book our tickets together. Awesome. So tell me, how would you interest someone that is the first timer walking off the street? What would be your best, I guess, pitch to them saying, hey, you should try this breathwork because?
It's funny because I do that pitch quite often and it changes a lot. There's kind of the woo-woo version of it, and then there's the really grounded version of it. And in general, I think that I would say that it has the ability to kind of clear out that gunk that you carry around with you, those leftover feelings, without having to actually figure out how to turn what you're feeling into words, right? Talk therapy is super beneficial, but also we have the potential to twist what we're saying, even though it's not helpful for us, right? Like express in a way that's not fully true and maybe not as helpful as maybe it would need to be. So I tell people, when you breathe, your endorphins flow and your subconscious kind of rises to the surface, and you don't have to try to figure out what you're feeling or why. You just feel it and you can clear it. And also, I talk about clearing a lot because I think it's such a powerful process for clearing, but also just being able to exchange energy with an infinite energy source, the universe, to fill back up with the energy. It's such an empowering thing. It's so freeing and magical to be able to clear out what's not serving you anymore and fill up with more of that power and light and love, and just be lighter and be more shiny when you're done.
Yeah. Well, that's why, guys. Duh. So was there anything that you want to share with the audience about how they can find you, or any promotions, any upcoming virtual events that you want to share? And we'll leave a link below.
Sure. Yeah. So my website is christineoconnor.com. Christine O'Connor.com, or you can get there by putting in Breathwork Ann Arbor or Breathwork Detroit. And I am doing pretty regular groups in my area, but virtually I have one coming up on, let me look at my note here, September 19th. It's 8 p.m. Eastern, so I'll have a link to that on my website, as well as I'm working on some virtual offerings specifically targeted towards parents, and also one for creatives. So those will be available on my website pretty shortly, so you can go sign up for my newsletter.
Yay.
And it will keep you posted about when those are available.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine.
You,
it's been such a pleasure interviewing with you today. And I'm just so honored that I received this value and that I'm able to share it with my audience. So thanks so much for joining us today, and good luck with your upcoming events.
You are a joy. I love seeing your face, and I love talking about breathwork. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks so much, Amy.
Thank you too. Have a good day.
You too. Thanks.